Hey everyone, Bob here. So I have a really weird video for you today. This is, I'm going to call it an addition anyway, because it's certainly not big enough or official enough to be an expansion. This is just some kooky idea out of my own head to add the Blue Wizards into the game. So why I think this is an idea worth having is that the game is recognized to be not perfectly balanced, right? As you get with pretty much any asymmetrical game. So the win rate, as of this morning anyway, is just over 56% for the Shadow player, which honestly isn't a terrible thing. As has been pointed out, it's kind of fun for the free peoples feeling like, things are scary and not that likely for them. Like that's fairly thematic. And I've played a lot of asymmetrical games where the win rates are way worse, where it's like not balanced well at all. So I still happily recognize that this is a masterpiece and it doesn't need me to improve it really because it's already great. But I do think this is a cool idea that I would be interested to try out anyway. So the game makers thought that the Shadow player in the late game could use the Mouth of Sauron, who not only adds an extra die, but he also allows them to turn their musters into attacks because they realized that just at a different stage of the game, musters are not as useful, and the Shadow player really wants to attack more. So my thought was, why not have a similar option for the free peoples? So how the Blue Wizards are going to work, let me switch screens over here. I have a little something to explain it. Okay, here we go. So I made these two little character cards for the two different Blue Wizards that you can muster, which are clearly the Gandalf the Grey card that I just messed around with paint a little bit here. Everything on here is accurate for how it would be played. They would have a level of 3, leadership of 1, can activate any nation, but those are fairly, that's not really the point here. So how they'd work, they may be mustered if the Fellowship has reached 8 corruption or if the Shadow player has reached 6 victory points. So they're also supposed to be a late game option for the free peoples. And I thought these paralleled the Mouth of Sauron pretty well, because the Mouth of Sauron's 2 conditions are either the Fellowship has reached Mordor or all free people nations are at war. So similarly, 1 you have pretty much no control over. You don't control whether the Shadow player can get to 6 victory points. Like you could leave strongholds to let him get there faster, but that's clearly a terrible idea. And similarly, the Shadow player can't control if the Fellowship gets to Mordor. They just can't really, like they can slow it down a bit, but they can't make it happen. Similarly, 8 corruption is something that the free people's player can kind of control. Like they can try to accumulate corruption earlier, which is why I set the bar at 8 so high, because getting up that high is a really, really dangerous thing to do on purpose. If Candles of Corpses or Sealder's Bane is out there, like you're really risking losing to corruption early. And similarly, the Shadow player can get all the free people's nations to war earlier, but there's a disadvantage in it for that because obviously now they're all at war. So that allows the free peoples to muster wherever they like, and yeah. Okay, so what they actually do. The difference between the 2 Blue Wizards is they just change the likelihood of which 2 options they grant you. So after you spend a muster die, you bring them into play. The next turn, after you roll your action dice, you roll a die. Just control 1, roll a die. For this wizard, 1 to 2 grants you option A, and 3 to 6 grants you option B. This one is the reverse. So these are their names from Tolkien's writings anyway. Like he doesn't bring them up much in stories, but he addressed them in some writing anyway. I found them online anyway. So they will allow you to do one of 2 things, and you can do it once per turn. So option A, you may discard any 2 action dice to immediately take 1 action as if they had a character action die. So good for, you're on the Mordor track, you roll all musters and Palantirs. It gives you a chance at, at least moving or hiding once, And option B is you may discard 2 character action dice to heal 1 corruption point. So I don't know if that immediately sounds ludicrously unbalanced. Like if that sounds like it's way too strong for the free peoples. Just based on how people have reacted to tokens, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the general reaction, is that these seem too strong. But I don't know. I mean, the only way to ultimately prove if something is balanced or not is to, give it a few playthroughs and see, if if I convince some people to try it out with me a few times and the free people's just winning every single time, then obviously this is too strong and they need to get nerfed. But here's why I think it's not crazily unbalanced for free peoples now is because first off, these are pretty inefficient, right? Like discarding 2 character action dice to heal 1 corruption point, there's good odds that you're not moving the fellowship that turn if you do it. And discarding any 2 action dice to move with 1 character die is obviously, 2 for 1. That's inefficient. And that means you're not defending and not playing cards to do that, right? So, yeah, I don't think it's going to be horribly unbalanced for the free peoples, but I think it helps, just for those turns where the dice just say, too bad, you don't get to do anything, you can at least do a little something. That's the hope for these anyway. And who knows, maybe it will be terribly unbalanced and they won't work at all. And that's fine. It's just a fun little experiment I want to try anyway. Okay, so just further clarifying how they work. The free people's player can spend a muster to bring in 1 blue wizard in any region touching the easternmost edge of the map or the easternmost unconquered free people stronghold. So that's just a little bit of kind of lore factored in. Ramastamo and Morinitar were sent by the Valar to Middle-earth with Saruman a long time before Gandalf showed up. And they all journeyed far into the east. Saruman came back. They never came up. In Tolkien's earlier writings, he said that they kind of fell from their purpose of fighting against Sauron, and they started their own creepy little magic cults. But in later writing, he said that they kind of they aided the few men who were resisting in the east and kept Sauron's forces in disarray for a very long time, so that their military strength again in the War of the Ring would have been much stronger if the Blue Wizards hadn't done there. So, yeah. Anyway, it's just interesting how his different thoughts played out over time. So I'm choosing to go with version 2 and that they actually showed up for this war, which obviously didn't happen in the writings, but we're just having fun with it. So they're not interchangeable like the Witch King and the Lord's expansion. Like you can't spend a muster die to swap between the 2 if you want to, or if one dies, you can't bring in the other one. I'm trying to start these out in a bit of a weaker state, just in case they are overpowered. Yeah, so that's explaining what I said before, how you roll a die after the action roll to see which option they're granting you. Yeah, so they have a movement of 3, which I mainly put in so that you can, if you want to, bring them into a stronghold maybe with Reprove the Swifter. Yeah, but their leadership is 1. They don't have any Captain of the West or Shining ability, so I don't think they're going to be fantastic for combat. Like they would help a bit with like Brave Stands and Sudden Strikes, and they might be a good choice for a Heroic Death for throwing them under the bus if you really just need one stronghold to hold out. But I granted putting them on the board just so that they're helpful in more respects than just pushing the Fellowship, because that's a common criticism of Dwarven Rings anyway, is that they really just sprint the Fellowship. But I think the Blue Wizards would help the Free Peoples in pretty much any of the 3 ways to play. So like when I say 3, like in general, you're either sprinting with the Fellowship or you separate and crown Aragorn and you're trying to like militarize a bit and move the Fellowship a bit slower. Or you're trying to win with the Free People's military victory. And I think the Blue Wizards help a bit with any of those and not too much in any of those. So that's one thing that I think is cool, because like you can bring him in on any eastern edge. So like if you're doing Free People's military, he can come and join your army in Mordor, right? Like he can just plop right into Gorgoroth or in the south of Rhûn. Or he might be able to help hold out in Erebor, So anyway, and also the ability to like discard a muster and a Palantir to have a character action die so that you can move an army and attack. That's also really helpful for a Free People's military win. Might be anyway. Like again, still inefficient, but sometimes you just really want that one more attack to try to conquer a stronghold, so it'd help with that too. And of course, being able to spend dice more inefficiently to heal the Fellowship, I think is crucial, because I find it really frustrating when you've done a fantastic job of stalling out militarily. It's like turn 12 or 13 or something. but the Fellowship has just had the absolute living garbage beaten out of them. Like the hunt just hits every time. You've done all the healing cards. You've even stopped like for 2 or 3 turns to heal up, but they're still just going to die on the mortar track. Like you're a couple steps in and it's just hopeless because luck has just said, too bad, you lose. You've done like everything right, but the luck just says, too bad, you lose. This at least grants you an option. Like first stalling out, it gives you a way to heal up a little bit more, because I find stopping to heal in strongholds is not done very often because it's slow and it's unreliable, right? Like not only are you spending a whole turn not moving, but you also need to have reached one of those spots, right? And oftentimes Minas Tirith is conquered by the time you get there, and stopping for a long time anywhere else means there's good odds you're just never going to get there. So, anyway, I also like that it makes crowning Aragorn a bit better of an idea because you have more dice to spend on these inefficient options. Because the main meta, like I've asked a lot of the higher rated Free People's players, and in general, the meta right now is to sprint with the Fellowship, keep Strider as the guide for his hiding ability and his corruption healing, like with Athos / him dying himself. Like it's not that no one ever separates and crowns Aragorn, because that can be really powerful too. But in general, amongst the better players, it's preferred to keep Strider, and I think this would make crowning Aragorn a little bit better of a choice too. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much all I have to say about these. If you're interested in playing with this, please do let me know. Oh yeah, as for how I would actually put them on the board, under help, I think dwarven rings, add 1 dwarven ring. I think that's the easiest token that you're never going to use, because if you use like a Free People's conquering thing to represent the blue wizard, like what happens if he does run down here, like that isn't conquered, so that's kind of confusing. So I think the first dwarven ring you summon it has a blue gem in it, so I think that's pretty perfect. So I just like plunk it there, and yeah, then he can run around and go and do whatever. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I realized I totally forgot to switch the screen over. Okay, let me do that. Okay. Okay, here we go. So, yeah. So that's under help, dwarven rings, add 1 dwarven ring. Yeah, so there's and it'll pop up down there. So I already did that, not realizing I wasn't showing you guys anyway. Yeah, and so it even has the blue gem on it, right? So I think that fits. So yeah, if you do want to give this a go, feel free to message me on the Discord. I'd love to set up like playing 2 versions of it, like 2 legs of it, like in a tournament round where we each take a turn playing as the Free Peoples and getting to do the Blue Wizard. I'm not sure if we could count them as ladder matches or not. I'm going to ask a ladder admin about that anyway, because I think this counts as just a house rule pretty much, because again, this is just some kooky thing out of my head. But yeah, I'd love to try it out and see how it goes, and keep statistics and see if it is horribly unbalanced or if it helps balance it out just a bit. Yeah, thanks for your time. Have a good one.